Well,
Absolutely.
let's chat for a minute, Jeff, about how we're different.
Okay. I think that's important.
So
Yep.
there's the very obvious differences between us as men and women,
Yes.
right? So there's 2,300
Oh.
cellular differences between a man and a woman, and 100 different brain processes, right? So do we think different? Absolutely. Do we respond to life? Absolutely. And I think that sometimes maybe we've been a little bit influenced by feminism in that because it started out being, it's important that if a woman does the same job as a man, she gets the same pay. I think it's kind of morphed over time to the point where we almost believe that we can all be the same.
Right.
Right?
Yep.
So I can do what a man can do, and therefore a man can do what a woman can do. So we come with a lot different expectations into marriage, right?
That's a big one too.
Right?
Expectations.
Well, expectations comes from a belief system that we are the same. So if there's something I want you to do, you should be able to do it. Right? And you should think the way I think about it too.
Oh yeah, I'm smiling because that's absolutely
right.
It's like, oh yeah, I'm. I just want to welcome you again to our program this evening, and it's great. We have special guest Geri Holmes here again with us. I know many of you tuned into our program the last time we did a talk about perspective and learning to navigate through the different aspects of life and how we deal with stuff. But Geri's from Life Switch Counseling Services right here in the city of Estevan, and today we have a really important topic.
Yes.
It's one that I think so many people can relate to, and we want to talk about marriage and the dynamics. I like the word dynamics because it expresses lots of potential for sparking dynamics.
Yes.
But on the flip side, it also has tremendous potential of doing some pretty amazing things. And so I want to welcome you again to the program.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed spending time with you. We're going to do a couple of tapes and a couple of sessions, and we want to take the next 30 minutes or so and talk about some keys to having successful relationship and marriage and things like that. So we're glad you've joined us, and if you're not watching live or you're tuned into the program via the internet and through YouTube, we just want to welcome you, and so glad that you're taking time to invest. We believe that you're important and your life is important, and so we try to tackle subjects that really everyday things and everyday situations that we can work through, because I believe in your success and I believe that God has his best in mind for you, and discovering that and working towards that is awesome. So Geri, let's jump into it. I got a coffee, you got tea.
Yes, I do.
We're going to have a great time together and just talk about some really key issues when it comes to marriage relationship.
Well, Jeff, thanks for inviting me. I really enjoy these talks together, and I love the fact we're getting some practical help out there into the community. It's kind of sad because marriage is the most significant relationship of our life, and yet nobody gives us a course or instruction. We kind of go into it blindly.
It's almost like parenting. You don't have a manual for kids, and so all of a sudden here it is, and then you have to work with it. And so I agree with you very much so.
So, to jump right in, I think it's good to start at the beginning.
Yes.
Where we're attracted to one another, right? And so it's interesting because even though we're often saying, I'm attracted to you because I have something in common with you, the truth of the matter is DNA studies have shown us now, and actually supported this in science, that we are more likely attracted to someone who is the most different than us.
That's interesting because how many times would that be in a discussion, right?
Right.
Oftentimes it's not, but that's true, because I even look at my own relationship with my wife. We're very, very different. Right. But yet, in the bliss of attraction, all you see is, I love this, I love this, I love this, I love this, I love this. And that's kind of the bubble you create in the beginning stages. And then all of a sudden later on, all of a sudden it's like, whoa. Whoa.
Right.
And then you have to
even
deal with
at the beginning, we might be attracted, we like the same kind of music,
Yep.
or we go to the same kind of events, right? Or maybe
that's
we're
right, yeah.
sports buffs or whatever. And so we think, because we have found those commonalities, that that's going to make us the same.
Right.
Right? And then, of course, what happens as time changes, we can't go to the gym together because the kids are at home, or we can't, our music styles have changed, we've changed, and now we wake up one day, and this is a very common thing people say to me, is we have nothing in common, and you're so different, I don't even like you anymore.
Isn't that true?
Right?
Absolutely.
So I think
the very thing we thought ends up being the opposite sometimes, and it's but it was always there.
Right.
A lot of times it was always there. It just sometimes I don't think we recognize it, and then when we do recognize it, how do we deal with that? Because those are real life issues that we all face,
right,
in whatever context of relationship. And so,
well, let's chat for a minute, Jeff, about how we're different. Okay.
I think that's important.
So there's the very obvious differences between us as men and women, right? So there's 2,300 cellular differences between a man and a woman, and 100 different brain processes, right? So do we think different? Absolutely. Do we respond to life? Absolutely. And I think that sometimes maybe we've been a little bit influenced by feminism, in that because it started out being, it's important that if a woman does the same job as a man, she gets the same pay. I think it's kind of morphed over time to the point where we almost believe that we can all be the same.
Right.
Right?
Yep.
So I can do what a man can do, and therefore a man can do what a woman can do. So we come with a lot different expectations into marriage, right?
That's a big one too.
Right?
Expectations.
Well, expectations comes from a belief system that we are the same. So if there's something I want you to do, you should be able to do it. Right? And you should think the way I think about it too.
Oh yeah, I'm smiling because that's absolutely
right.
It's like, oh yeah, I'm.
So I think where we see it really emerge is when we have the first kid. In fact, when you do studies of marital satisfaction, they say it's fairly high at the beginning until the birth of the first child. And then it drops down into the toilet, right? Yeah. And then it stays down there until the children go to school. And it kind of comes up, marital satisfaction goes up, stays up again till high school years, or teenage years, goes down again.
Yes.
And then after the kids launch, marital satisfaction will come up again. Right? And then it's kind of, what do we decide to do after that? But that's because when we introduce kids to the mix, you really see difference. Not just in the way we parent, but in the way we handle stress. Because, introduce a kid, I'm tired, I'm not getting the same amount of sleep. Women are a little bit more hormonal. Men feel the stress financially, even though it may not change. In their mind, it has changed. Because
it's amazing how the mind plays and all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
It's like it can be the enemy of all enemies if we're not careful.
Yes, and I think men feel a lot of responsibility for this new child and this wife that they need to take care of. And so we've got different stresses. And so what happens is, when you don't think about things and respond to the stress the way I do, I just assume there's something wrong with you. Right? Let's roll the clock forward. A man comes home from work. He's been beating the bushes. To him, his biggest love expression is the fact that I'm going to work for you and the kids, right? So he walks in the door. He's tired. He steps over the laundry basket. Right, he goes to the couch. He's resting like he's been working hard. The kid's screaming in the corner. The kids are fighting. He doesn't even hear it. It's not even in his radar. He's just so glad to be home. And what a woman sees is that, what's the matter with you? You're so self-centered. You don't even care about what's going on around here. You're not pitching in. And we read messages into that, Jeff.
Oh yeah, we do.
Right?
I'm.
You're a believer. So some of the messages we read into that is, if you loved me and you cared about me, you would see what I see. right?
Yeah,
You
absolutely.
You would respond the way I would respond.
Yeah.
Right? And it's not that men don't care. It's not that men don't see.
Yeah.
It's that they're more singularly focused.
Yeah.
You know, Mark Grunger, wonderful guy with a great video series, says that men live in boxes, right? And women live in super lane highways. So that means men are in one box at a time. If I'm in my relax after work box, I'm not in my kid box or my wife box or my marriage box or my home care box, right?
Yep.
And so it takes a jolt to break a man out of the box and say, honey, would you help me? Here's the laundry basket. Can you fold that while you watch the game? Or, honey, can you solve that problem over there, right? And I think women feel like that's somehow degrading, treating them like a child, to be able to draw to their attention another box that they need them in at that time.
I think one of the other dynamics, too, that we're facing in culture is now you have the aspect where you have two careers in the home.
Yes.
And you're picking up the kids, and you bring in often work chaos and the stress of both sides coming in.
Right.
And then you have the kids.
Yeah.
And then you have that dynamic in a mix. And I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, because I know you're well experienced in this aspect, but I don't know if we've learned how to properly deal with stress. We can bury it sometimes in doing more work. You talk about being in a box. I can relate to that because I'm very systematic. I like, there's a problem or a situation, I like to deal with that problem, even to the point where, and my wife watching this will go, will totally agree with it, that when I start a project, I don't want to stop that project till I see it finished.
Right.
So if I leave work and she's at work and I come home and I'm still thinking of, I need to finish that project, she comes home thinking, I want to rest, I want to spend some time with you, I just want to chat, I want to talk. And that's the last thing that's on my mind, because I'm in my mind, I haven't completed something.
Right.
And I want to see it finished. And so I bring that, Carrie, we talked about expectations. That's huge, because I come and bring that expectation that I want to eat, and then, or whatever I want to do, and I want to finish that project. And then she has an idea, come home, I've had a hard day at work, and I just want to relax and put up her feet, let's visit, or let's go for coffee. And sometimes I go for coffee, okay, let's do that. But yet, and we've talked about that between her and I, about being present.
Right.
And so I want to, let's go for coffee, but I haven't
come out of your box.
I haven't come out of my box. So then I sit down and we have coffee, and she's talking about her day or whatever, and all of a sudden she'll say, "You're not here, are you?"
Right.
And I'm like, "What do you mean? Like, are you listening to what I'm talking about?" And for the longest time, I would say, now I say, you know what, you're right, I'm not.
Right.
I'm still here. And I want to close this door, and now I want to be in this door. And that was a huge conflict because I was in my box.
Right. And I think it's really cool because men do, I mean, it's not a weakness, it's a strength, because men have the ability to completely shelve things. Now, women live in super lane highways, right?
Okay.
And so if they have a lot of distractions, right, they're okay, the kids are over there, the meal's over there, this is happening over here, and their brains are going, a million different directions. And so it's really hard for them to slow down with a lot of distractions. So where you really see this is in sexuality, right?
Absolutely,
a woman will say, just let me finish this first, or just, I need to clean this up first, or I need to make the lunches first, and I'm not even here with you yet, because I have got to get rid of all of the distractions, while a man's in, he's in the box. I'm in the box right now. So where are you, right? And I don't think women have the ability to really manage boxes as well as men. At the same time, I don't think men have the ability to manage the constant multiplicity of tasks that are going on around them that women can do really well.
Right.
Right?
And if we don't focus on those strengths and use them as opportunities of being threatened by it,
right,
that's where you have the potential of sparks and things spiraling because it's like, no, I'm not getting what I want, you know, and all that kind of stuff too. And so,
well, what's really cool is, okay, so women are primarily estrogen based. I mean, this is the research. Where do our differences really come from besides just our physical shapes? But we're estrogen based, and because we're estrogen based, we have actually seen scientific studies now that show that affects the way we think. Okay, men are testosterone based, right? That's the highest hormone in their body. And so how this affects us is women are what I call anticipators. So from the minute that woman gets pregnant, she's anticipating the birth of that child. Is the room ready? Do I have a crib? Have I packed the bag? Is my suitcase ready to go? Do I have everything I need? Have I made arrangements, you know, in my work and all of these things? And so she's already anticipating. And this goes right through after I have the baby cries, she's anticipating, is this a hungry cry, an angry cry, a tired cry, right? And she does it intuitively. It's not like something she's learned. It's just this anticipation is there. Well, that's how she does her marriage too. So she loves her husband. She anticipates his need. What time's he going to be home? What are we going to have for supper? Right? What else needs to be done tonight? If I've got older kids, who needs to take them to hockey? Who needs to do this? Who needs to do that? It's not even necessarily she's a better organizer, because that's personality. But she is anticipating
that's
need.
important you said that, because sometimes we make that assumption.
Right.
But personality is huge.
Right.
In the mix of our differences even.
Right, and I want to talk to that too, but I just want to finish this thought here.
Absolutely.
So because she's anticipating, she always knows intuitively what her husband needs. That's why birthday comes along. She probably knows what to buy him. She knows what she likes, right? She knows what he wants in the garage. She know, like, you know what I mean? If he's a half-decent communicator, she anticipates. But a man doesn't anticipate, he responds, which is different.
Yeah.
So he comes home, and if there is a need that he is aware of, you have actually said, this is something I need you to do, he will respond to that need quickly on one condition, that there is no tone in her voice. Now, I don't mean to use bad words here, but there is something called the bitch tone that every man recognizes and every man responds to. So if a woman keeps her tone softer and doesn't have the exasperation in it, right? Yeah. So remember that laundry basket he stepped over? Honey, would you mind folding these clothes while I start supper? Or honey, would you mind, right, reading a story to the kids while I do this, right? And we keep the tone soft and our voice slower. A man will quite willingly respond unless there's been a lot of hurt, right? Yeah. But the minute she sounds like this, can you fold those clothes, right? the tone changes. There's a switch in a man's brain. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I do. Yep, I do.
Just check it out. There's a switch in a man's brain that goes off, and he gets resistant. I don't know what it is. Like, I've asked literally hundreds of men, because I've done a lot of counseling in my life, and every single one of them nods that there is this instant resistance to the tone of voice.
I wonder if it's because we feel like that we failed, maybe, or we're not meeting expectations, because we're box thinkers, right? In some perspective. So I'm wondering if maybe threatened isn't a word. That's a strong word. But that idea of...
I think reprimanded.
Yes, reprimanded because we haven't done something or completed something.
Right.
Because if we're talking about differences, so if we're systematic and we want to finish a project or finish the thought or whatever, I'm wondering sometimes if that threatens us, because it probably plays against our ego too sometimes, because we like to accomplish, we like to be valued, or that we've done something significant. And then maybe if it's that way, it feels like, okay, I haven't completed something, I haven't fulfilled something, especially if it happens multiple times.
Right.
I don't know, maybe that's part of it.
I think the tone of voice is an interesting thing, because women will say to me, it feels like I have another child. And men will say to me, I feel like I'm being treated like a child. Okay. So it's the tone, because when I am reprimanding my children, I have that exasperated tone. I just do.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I can't help
Yep.
it, right?
Yep.
So the tone communicates that what is wrong with you that you didn't figure this out? What is wrong with you that you didn't see that laundry basket? The tone, that exasperated tone, has a what is wrong with you feeling to it, right?
And then a belittling, and then you feel like, well, and then a whole bunch of stuff also starts rolling around.
And if we're a little bit insecure, and we all are somewhat
absolutely.
insecure
I
in
totally
our
agree.
humanity,
I'm not afraid to say that.
right?
I have insecurities.
Then I feel like, what is wrong with me that I didn't see that? I'm just such a mess here. Maybe you don't want me anyway. And that actually makes me defensive.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. Yeah,
so
I'm following
sometimes, I want to give a tool here. I don't want to just talk about it in principle.
Yeah.
But I think it's really important for a woman to understand when a man says, quit yelling at me, it's not that you're yelling. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's that your tone is got that exasperation to it. And so you just need to roll back the clock, back up the train, say sorry, repeat the same thing, but with a softer, quieter tone. And, if we can just let go of our ego and our pride and say, maybe it really is my tone.
That is the biggest thing, I think, that
Right?
we face, is deal with that aspect of pride. And
Yeah, I think we all struggle with pride. I don't want to pick on women, but maybe as a woman I feel the right to do that a little bit. Right?
I agree, because I think pride has a lot to do with humility is huge.
Right.
And I think a lot of times where the differences really come in is when the differences do surface.
Yes.
We have our danders up, we have our egos up, and humility is huge.
Right. Well, see, the other thing is every marriage has complaints. In fact, marriages are made or destroyed based on all the little things. Like, it is truly about, you didn't hang up the towels after the shower, you throw your socks beside the hamper instead of in it.
Put the lid down on the toilet.
Right. Those are complaints,
Yeah.
right? And John Gottman, the leading researcher in marriage dynamics, says that we all have complaints. And 70% of the time, it's the women that bring it up. But that's no predictor of a good or bad relationship.
Right.
It's just, I don't know why. It's the nature of women. Maybe wanting to improve things, get things better, right?
Yeah.
So a complaint is brought up. Now, we can really quickly turn that complaint into a criticism by telling a person why they're doing it, okay? So maybe I say, honey, can you not hang up the towels? Okay, now watch my tone. Here we go, right?
Yeah.
Honey, would you please hang up the towels after the shower? Or I can say, do you not think of anybody but yourself? Like, we walk in here.
I'm just writing some of these because these are good. These are good to review again.
Right. So we turn a complaint into a criticism by judging why that person did that. Okay? Now, so much of our life, Jeff, by the time we're 30, 40 for sure, is habit-driven.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And habits are just that, and they don't change easily. Some people say that with determined effort, it takes 3 weeks to change a habit. The new research is showing with determined effort, it takes 6 months to change a habit.
Wow.
Now, are we going to address every tiny complaint of the marriage with that kind of force?
No.
So the bottom line is, at some point, we got to get used to living with habits. But the difference is, what makes us able to live with habits is when we don't read more into it than it's just a habit.
How many times have I got myself into trouble, not only in relationship with my wife, but even just general relationships, when you have that kind of mindset, when you're struggling with that, because you reading into it, you start building a scenario based on what you think it is, and you react accordingly, or you don't even get the chance to. You've got this built up momentum of this is where I'm going after, and then all of a sudden you find out through the conversation and then you find yourself backtracking because you have built up a whole thing because you've read into so much, and that's huge.
And we can case build. Do you know what I mean? So let's say complaint number 1 is the towels. Complaint number 2 is the toilet seat. Complaint number 3 is the socks by the hamper. Right? But men can do this too. I'm just not laying this on women, because men can say, you slammed the door on the car. You left your garbage in here.
You put your feet on the dashboard.
Right. Right. So, but we can be like a lawyer where we're case building.
Yes.
We're adding, and so then I don't want to say anything because this is going to cause problems, but we put it in the back of our mind, right?
Builds.
Right.
Builds.
And then one day we've had it. And why have we had it? Because we string together A with B with C with D, and that must mean the bottom line is you don't love me. You're selfish. You don't care about me, right? Because
Absolutely.
you just did 4 things that I asked you not to do. How many times? So bottom line is, if you cared about me, you would have changed this.
Yeah.
Right? And then I have a blowout, right? And I let you have it.
Yep.
And I bring incident number 1, and you're like thinking,
yes.
Well, when was that? Well, when did I do that?
Yes.
And I can't even remember it. So how can I talk about it? And I'm over here, but then now you've just jumped to number 2, which is the dashboard, right?
Yep.
And I'm like, dashboard? I can't remember the last time. I haven't done that lately. Like, what's he talking about? Or what's she talking about, right? And then we're not even finished thinking about that one, and now you brought up number 3. And after a while, what it feels like, you just took a bag of marbles, you opened that bag, you threw it at me, and I'm going like this. I don't know which one to grab, which is the important issue. And I just get exasperated, and I'm done. Typically, I either yell back, or I turn on my heel and I leave the room. Because by the time you're done with the bag of marbles, there's only one conclusion I've got. And that is, I'm a screw up, I'm no good, this marriage is over, and maybe, this is what I hate more than anything else, we use leaving language. Then why don't you just get out of here? Why don't you leave? Like, why are we doing this anyway? Because I'm not good enough for you, nothing I do is ever good enough for you. You know, we're done. And then, whoa, now that brings huge insecurity, right?
Absolutely it does.
Right? Because if you're going to talk about leaving, now I'm like, oh my goodness, now what am I going to do? And often it leads to withdrawing and retreating and avoiding each other because I don't want to mess up, because I don't want to lose my relationship.
And that adds to the damage. Pulling it back and no communication. 3 things I wrote down just in our conversation was communication was a big one. Communication is huge. And assumptions are based on lack of communication or very limited communication. And when there's no communication, then we read into things and our expectations, and I totally get it. I sitting down with Helen and just talking about how we've pushed through what we have. We've been together now 28 years, going on 29.
Great.
But we had to go through wars. And I don't think we had to. There's things that we have to go through with because we're different. Because sometimes we don't know how the other person works or processes, and I think it's big that you say that we have an expectation the other person should think like me or think like us or respond like us. When we're so different, we're going to respond. My wife was a crier. First little problem, it was cries. Well, I took that as a threat. I failed. I brought instability, and so my fix mind was I need to fix it, where she needed to allow that to process through. And every time she cried, I got mad. I got threatened. I can't handle this emotional. I used to say, and it was not healthy. You're emotionally unstable. Like, you got to pull yourself together, because I expected her to think the way I did. We'll just deal with the problem, work it through, where that differences can be huge. And the biggest breakthrough, I think, in our relationship was after probably 10 years, probably even longer, that all of a sudden I began to recognize that I don't like how this is going. And I never used leaving language, but I thought, if this doesn't change, it's going to be over. Because we built habit. You talk about habits. I built habits for years and years and years and years. And year 12, and it's like something's got to happen. And I say, I woke up to myself and realized I have to take responsibility for how I process and how I think, and I have to give her freedom how she thinks and how she processes. And so we began to work on our communication skills because communication was horrible. We never communicated.
Well, Jeff, on that note, I talked earlier about reading messages into behavior. Okay?
Yes.
We make huge assumptions. So if you'd have said to Helen, and maybe you did, why are you crying? Okay, why are you crying?
I think I did when it got to the point where like I was.
Yeah, but it was more like, why are you crying?
Absolutely.
Instead of a genuine question that says, honey, this is upsetting me, so I need to know why you're crying.
Exactly.
And then believe her answer. So we will say, why do you put your feet up on the dash, right? Do you do it just to irritate me?
I've used that.
Right?
You're doing that just to irritate.
Oh, no, my back's kind of sore and it helps me to keep my feet up here when we travel long distances. Well, no, I don't like it. You should change. So if you do it again without thinking, which is quite typically true, then you're doing it deliberately. And so we make an assumption that we attach to the action.
I've done that so many times, Jerry. I've made that assumption. She wants to piss me off.
Right.
That's what she wants to do.
Right.
She's irritated and she knows she's going to get my attention, so she'll do the thing that I don't like. But the reality is, I probably hadn't communicated that for a long time, but it just built up. Those things, it's the little things. And then it was like, okay, you want to fight. You want to get after me.
Right.
And it's like,
there's an assumption.
Whoa,
right.
I'm just stretching my back. I'm relaxing. We're driving for a couple of hours.
Yes.
So a point where it can escalate based on those assumptions. And
not only that, when you ask a question, believe the answer.
Yes.
So let's say somebody's late. Okay, we got an appointment tonight, and you're late getting home from work, or you're late. And okay, so now I'm exasperated because I'm looking at the clock, and I'm like, and I say, well, where were you? And you say, oh, well, I just got distracted. Somebody came into the office. Well, you knew we had an appointment. Yeah. Well, I know I had an appointment. Well, don't you even care about this appointment?
I smile because we've been through that.
Right?
It's like,
and then I start attaching assumptions.
Yeah.
Well, you knew they had an appointment. You always put people first. You don't put me first. Right? Yeah. And I hear these voices, and you got to know, Jeff, okay, I really do believe there is a spiritual element to marriage where the enemy hates us, and the enemy puts a lot of these thoughts into our minds, these accusatory statements. He is the accuser. That's his name. And he puts the accusation, you don't care about me, you don't value me, other people are more important than me. And so I spew that out of my mouth. Is it because you don't care about me? Or I don't even ask, I just say, you don't care about me. And then you come back and you say, of course I care about you. This isn't about how much I care about you. It has nothing to do with how much I love you. It was just literally a last minute person. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. But we don't want to believe that easy answer.
No, because we think there's way more to it than that. It can't be just that.
Right. So we have to believe people's word, and we have to get rid of these voices in our head. A thought is not always the truth.
Yes, that's right. That is huge. One of the things that we've been talking about here is we've just talking about marriage and the dynamics of difference, and we've come to the 30-minute mark, and we just want to thank you so much for tuning in. We want to tell you that we're not stopping this subject, but we want to break off and we want to do another program again because this is good stuff. I can't tell you, I've been smiling a lot and stuff because been there.
Right.
And
I think we all have.
Absolutely.
Right.
And one of the purposes of these programs and these tapings that we do is to give people the opportunity to realize that they're not alone, that this is very normal. Whenever you come into a relationship, there's a potential of conflict, expectations, communication, all that stuff. And we've been talking about difference. And so we want to encourage you to stay tuned and look for a continuation of the subject we're talking about. So thank you for joining us.
Yes.
And we look forward to seeing you again the following week. And thank you again. Have a great rest of the week.
Bless you.